Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for January 22nd, 2024. Every week, I take a look at some headlines, articles, and news stories from across our great state, and you can find the links at freestatecolorado.com. Freestatecolorado.com. Also, we got some great interviews up there recently with James Wiley. He's a libertarian running for Congress in Congressional District 3. He's also doing a March for Peace in Denver every other Saturday. So check that interview out if you're interested in the Libertarian Party or just peace activism. I also have an interview recently with Lori Sane, Weld County Commissioner, one of our pro-liberty leaders here in Colorado, kind of describing what's going on in Weld County and giving us some background about Colorado's political process. So, of course, as always, links at freestatecolorado.com for all the news stories I'm going to cover this week and every week. But let's get started, see what's in the headlines. DenverGazette.com. Here we go. New immigrants pose difficult dilemma as Denver Health sees thousands of unpaid medical visits. Oh my gosh. You can imagine Denver being a sanctuary city, busloads and busloads of immigrants coming from Texas, massive homeless population already, and it's putting a huge strain. I mean, we're in this tough season of winter where there's a lot of people who are sick, in Denver Health, what are they going to do? They're millions of dollars in the hole because of this immigrant issue. So this article was updated on January 18th, 2024. Let's see what it says here. Denver Health, the city's hospital safety net, saw $10 million in additional uncompensated care in the last year, which the health system largely attributed to the tens of thousands of medical visits from immigrant patients from South and Central America. I don't know about you, but to imagine any business can survive for $10 million in the hole, $10 million worth of services or goods provided with no payment, that's going to be tough to overcome. The rise in costs coincides with, and health officials attribute to, the unprecedented number of immigrants who have crossed America's border illegally and arrived in Denver. Overall, these patients don't have medical insurance, said Dr. Taylor McCormick, Associate Director of Pediatrics, Emergency Medicine at Denver Health. Denver Health is eating the cost for many of these visits. That's tough. Uncompensated care includes health services that are provided but not reimbursed, often because patients lack medical insurance or the ability to afford the cost of care. Denver Health does not track, nor does it ask, the immigration status of its patient. This group of patients were identified as new to Denver Health as those without medical insurance and from one of the following countries: Colombia, El Salvador, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The lion's share from Venezuela, a country in which more than 7 million people have fled the brutal regime. Wow. 7 million people fleeing the socialist hellhole of Venezuela, a totalitarian place that doesn't provide a lot of opportunity. Can't blame these people for coming here, in my mind. Of course, it's a bad situation for Denver Health and all the social services, but it's just a tough situation overall. It's not just adults. Denver Health is also experiencing record patient volumes among those younger than 18, with a 10 to 15% increased demand in pediatric care. So that is tough. That is very tough, a really bad situation. I know Colorado's political representatives are looking for the federal government to help reimburse the state, Denver Health and others, for some of these costs imposed by this open border policy that's putting so much of our resources at in a straining situation. So we'll see how this goes. The immigration issue, coupled with the homeless issue in downtown Denver, is definitely going to create an interesting situation for years to come. Denver Gazette has some different photos on their website here. Really interesting article. Of course, you can find the link to this article at freestatecolorado.com. Let's go ahead and move on, see what else we got in the news this week. DenverPost.com. Colorado's public school enrollment hits lowest level in a decade. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of think this is a good thing, right? I mean, the fact that kids are not going to school, some of these government schools are failing. I mean, look at the test scores. When half the kids aren't able to read and write at a grade level, do math, maybe they're better off in a homeschool situation. Let's say they're almost always better off in a homeschool situation, or maybe some sort of private school as well. Public school is failing. It's failing to meet the needs of the students and the families. And public school is the biggest tool of authoritarians in our government and the teachers' unions to destroy the family unit, to pull kids away from their parents, and to turn kids into activists. I mean, it's been documented over and over again how Colorado's public schools are putting kids at risk and exposing them to some dangerous ideology that's causing mental health issues. Statewide enrollment fell by 1,800 children, less than 1% from last year in October. Some kids there. This article is from January 17th, 2024. Enrollment in Colorado's public school districts has reached its lowest point in a decade as fewer children registered to attend the state's schools last fall, continuing a multi year decline through the pandemic that is in large part due to falling birth rates. Well, that is definitely part of it. It is sad to see that families are smaller than they've ever been. Parents aren't having kids, and that's not necessarily a good thing for the future of humanity, right? Statewide enrollment in preschool through 12th grade fell by 1,800 children in October to 881,464 students, according to data released Wednesday by the Colorado Department of Education. The decline is smaller than the drop recorded last year, with enrollment falling less than 1% from the 2022 to 2023 school year. But it comes as enrollment in the state's public school system has fallen in 3 of the past 4 years. The last time Colorado's public school enrollment was this low was in 2013, when there were 876,999 pupils statewide, according to the Education Department. So very interesting to see that parents are either not sending their kids to schools or not having kids. I mean, that's a huge part of it. I mean, look at there's less marriages. Young people are waiting longer to have kids. They're not having kids. So definitely an issue there. Uh, we just talked about immigration in the previous article, so can imagine, maybe thinking, hey, federal government's opening up the borders, bringing people in to keep the population steady, right? If population is going to decrease because people aren't having kids, maybe there's some issues with fertility due to some chemicals or whatever in our society. Maybe bringing immigrants is a way to kind of sustain this population or grow it. So very interesting dynamics and demographics. Very interesting information about what's going on in Colorado's population. But hey, public school, get your kids out of there if you can, right? Let's go ahead and move on here. So, of course, housing still one of the biggest issues in Colorado. Housing costs are absolutely through the roof. One of the reasons here from this Denver Gazette article is that delayed permit approvals increases home building costs. Denver auditor says, well, sure, right? I mean, if you're a construction company of contractors and you're trying to build a house, the longer that goes, the longer these permit approval processes take, the more expensive it's going to be. I mean, that's common sense, common business sense. This article is from January 18th, 2024. Denver homeowners and contractors looking to build homes could see increased construction delays and costs as a result of overdue permit application reviews, according to a city auditor's report. Reviews are needed to determine if a construction project is qualified to start or complete within city limits. Auditors inspected Denver's Department of Community Planning and Development, which was responsible for handling permit applications, and found that its reviewers did not complete 76% of reviews on time in 2022, a number which peaked to 81% by April 2023, according to the auditors. So think of that. 81% of permit applications in April 2023 were not being completed on time. That is absolutely crazy. So people are trying to build houses, contractors, these construction companies, developers coming in, trying to build housing, and they can't get the Denver Planning Department to approve the permits. I mean, of course, it's going to create delays in housing, which causes a lot of other issues. Inconsistencies and errors in the process for issuing home renovation permits could lead more people to do the work without any approval at all. Well, there you go. Yeah, good call. I mean, why should I ask the government to approve renovating my own house if I own it, right? I shouldn't have to ask for permission. Auditor Timothy O'Brien said in a news release on Thursday that puts residents in the community at risk if something were to go wrong during construction or sometime in the future. Yeah, I don't know about this auditor, of course, he's trying to justify the need of the government to have control of this permitting process. These permits maybe are not necessary in a lot of occasions. but at the very least, they should be approving these permits or processing them on time and continuing this process to move forward here. Auditors received survey responses from 55 people, 30 of whom said long review times complicated the permit review process. Auditors said, well, makes sense. One aspiring homeowner paid at $24,000 more than the original project cost because of extended payments on rent and mortgage, auditors said. Well, there you go. I mean, the government's getting in the way of housing. I mean, that's one of the most obvious solutions or one of the most obvious issues with housing in general is the government has so many rules and regulations and permitting requirements that of course it slows down the process, makes it a lot more difficult for individuals like this homeowner here to be able to get into his house. So check that article out if you're interested. Unfortunately, things are not looking good, but hopefully some public pressure from the people not putting up with this permit delays, not putting up with what's going on in Denver, and I'm sure it's happening in other metro area cities as well. Let's go ahead and move on. Looking at Colorado's 2024 November election, unfortunately, Arapahoe County government is looking to raise taxes and to take away taxpayer Bill of Rights protections for the residents there. Arapahoe County is one of the few counties left that allows the taxpayer Bill of Rights protections for its taxpayers and residents. Unfortunately, they're trying to change that. Will Arapahoe County voters forfeit sensible TABOR tax caps? Arapahoe County still has property tax caps in place under the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, TABOR, and the 5.5% annual mill levy cap. County commissioners were poised last summer to refer a county tax increase or DTABOR to the 2023 ballot. Voter sentiment at the time reflected that taxpayers were in no mood to pay higher taxes. Additionally, controversial Proposition HH was set for the ballot, which the county commissioners feared would result in voter tax increase fatigue. The Arapahoe County Commissioners chose to hold off on a referred measure in 2023 and wait for the 2024 election. Not even waiting until the last election was over, the county commissioners requested bids for strategic political consulting services on October 27th, 2023. So here we go. These county commissioners they want to use your taxpayer dollars, Arapahoe County citizens, to hire a political consulting service to figure out a way to reverse your protections that the state constitution provides you and raise your taxes. So the contract for $156,250 was awarded to Public Alignment Communication. As of January 5th, 2024, the contract was awaiting signatures. So they are paying political consultants $156,000 with a potential idea of raising taxes in Arapahoe County. If you're an Arapahoe County citizen, if you're an Arapahoe County taxpayer, homeowner, business owner, you should be pretty upset. You should be extremely upset that your county commissioners are trying to overturn the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Your rights as a taxpayer are at risk due to your county government. This cannot stand, and these people deserve to be run out of government and run out of the state of Colorado. Shame on the county commissioners in Arapahoe County. Let's go ahead and move on. This is from the coloradosun.com, their unaffiliated newsletter talking about Colorado's political atmosphere here. Challengers take big fundraising leads in Colorado House primaries. So kind of sticking with the 2024 election, we got a lot going on. Obviously, presidential year, congressional, a lot of major races. Of course, I think the House, the state House, and the state Senate races are some of the most exciting or interesting. But it looks like there's going to be some real potential big turnover going on in the Democratic caucus here. Let's see. Well, this article was from January 19th, 2024. Democratic state reps Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez, both of Denver, were dramatically outraised by their primary challengers from October through December, according to campaign finance reports filed Tuesday with the Colorado Secretary of State's office. So, as you probably know, Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez are both avowed and admitted socialists who want to take our guns away, totally take away our American values, and create this government authoritarian system in which, socialists like them are in charge of our day to day lives. Denver attorney Sean Camacho reported raising nearly $59,000, compared with the roughly $8,200 raised by Epps in House District 6. Camacho had nearly $62,000 in cash in his campaign account at the end of the year, compared with Epps' $35,000. Retired immigration judge Cecilia Espinoza raised more than $50,000 compared with nearly $9,000 raised by Hernandez in House District 4. A vacancy committee selected Hernandez over Espinoza for the Northwest Denver seat last summer. Espinoza counted numerous lobbyists and some former state lawmakers among her donors. She had $52,000 in cash in her campaign's account at the end of 2023, compared with the $18,000 Hernandez had. Wow. Among those who donated to Camacho, so these are opponents of Elizabeth Epps, Katie March, whom Epps defeated in the 2022 Democratic primary in House District 6. March is a former aide to then House Speaker Alec Garnett. House Majority Leader Monica Duran. So you got the House Majority Leader and State Representatives David Ortiz and Mick Froelich, current legislators, colleagues of Elizabeth Epps, donating money to her opponent in the primary. There you go. The leadership funds for Senate President Steve Fenberg and Representative Judy Amabile, both Boulder Democrats, as well as leadership funds for State Reps Shannon Byrd, Kathy Kipp, Karen McCormick, Lindsay Doughty, and then Chris Hansen and Jeff Bridges. So these people, a lot of the state legislators, especially the ones that have been there for a while, are spending big money, campaign money, to defeat Elizabeth Epps and get her kicked out of the state house. This is a massive split in the Colorado Democratic Caucus in both the House and the Senate, and it's interesting to see how it's going to play out. Definitely one of the bigger stories in Colorado politics in 2024 is a split between the Democrat socialists and the more what they would call moderate Democrats, whether they're moderate or not. We don't have to talk about that right now, but that's what they would probably think. Nearly 40 lobbyists and consultants. Wow. So the whole political class of consultants and lobbyists are supporting Elizabeth Epps' opponent. So there you go. You can keep reading this article if you'd like, but a lot of information in terms of what's going on in terms of the shakeup there. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Of course, you should definitely subscribe to the Colorado Sun's news articles because they are very interesting, providing some insight into what's going on in our state legislature. But definitely wanted to share that portion with you this week. Let's go ahead and move on. Now, here's an article to get your blood boiling. This is denvergazette.com, January 21st, 2024. Colorado property taxes may increase 25%. Now, if you've been following Free State Colorado for the last year, you're not surprised. We've been talking about this. I've been joined many times by one of my favorite guests, the great Natalie Metton, who has been pushing back and trying to raise awareness and empower individuals and taxpayers, property owners, to actively lower their taxes. And there's a lot of things we can do. So check out the Free State Colorado archives and YouTube videos related to property taxes from last year to find out what you can do to fight back. But let's look at this article here. Despite Governor Jared Polis approving several property tax relief bills after the failure of Proposition HH, come on, those were all garbage, we know that, Colorado homeowners may still pay an average of 25% more in property tax increases, according to an analysis by the Common Sense Institute. Proposition HH intended to use the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights surplus revenue, normally money refunded to taxpayers, to reduce property taxes, fund school districts, water districts, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was a tax increase. One of the largest tax increases in history. Proposition HH went down in flames. Colorado voters do not want to see their taxes raised. Voters in November did not support the tax relief measure. Anyways, following Proposition HH's defeat, Polis held a special legislative session to discuss alternatives. So they lowered the assessment rate by 0.065%. There you go, and changed the exemption amount by a couple $1,000s. So anyways, the number, down from the previous 36% increase, is still higher than normal in the past 3 decades, CSI said. Between 2001 and 2023, Colorado's total property tax revenues rose an average of $400 million per year. Wow. New laws passed in November could result in $3.5 billion in state revenues this year, according to CSI. The state could have generated $3.8 billion in property tax revenues if not for November's special session. CSI concluded that statewide property tax revenue will very likely outpace inflation. The Denver area Aurora Lakewood Consumer Price Index rose 8% in 2022 and 5.22% in 2023, higher than national inflation. Well, there you go. I mean, our state government at work, folks. They claim, the Democrats, including Jared Polis, claim to be saving you property tax money, claim to be an advocate for the working class, but they are not. The authoritarian legislators that we have, including our governor, are not friends of the working class. They're not friends of homeowners, and they're not friends of senior citizens who are going to be struggling to pay their property tax bills for years to come. It's shameful that we have a state government who is trying to fleece the public, who's trying to grab every penny they can from us who work so hard, just trying to make ends meet. So, folks, when you see your property tax bill and see that it's increased by 25%, you know who to blame. It's our state legislature and the governor. Let's move on. We have an article, excuse me, an article here from coloradopolitics.com from John Caldera, one of Colorado's liberty leaders here. Bring back the old TABOR. This article is from 20 hours ago, so January 21st, 2024. The former head of the leftist Progress Now Colorado, who is married to a U.S. Congresswoman living in Jefferson County, has donated to the election campaigns of all three of the current Jefferson County commissioners. So, what a coincidence. Those same Jefferson County commissioners, all Democrats, are now going to pay him $180,000 to help dupe taxpayers out of TABOR refunds. That's right. So, earlier this week, just earlier in this video, we talked about Arapahoe County trying to do the same thing. Unfortunately, Jefferson County commissioners are trying to get a ballot measure on November's ballot, trying to get voters to pass it, that would also take away taxpayer Bill of Rights protections and raise taxes in Jefferson County. As reported by the news site CompleteColorado.com, a project of Independence Institute, which I run, 7th Congressional District U.S. Rep. Brittany Pedersen's husband, Ian Silveri, has just inked a spectacular deal from Jefferson County. His firm won a $340,000 contract, of which he personally gets $180,000. The job? To strategize how to con those pesky, greedy little constituents of theirs to finally give up their TABOR refunds forever. Twice before, those hateful voters turned down the opportunity to do the right thing and forfeit their hard-earned money, the bastards. Let's for a moment put aside the ethical issue of a government using your taxpayer dollars to campaign to get more of your taxpayer dollars. Let's also put aside the ethical question of cronyism in government contracting. Let's instead chat about how brilliant Jefferson County voters were to twice turn down this, quote, debrucing, the slang term for TABOR overrides, and why they will again. When you get your property tax bills next month, you'll wish all the districts you're paying to didn't debruce, like Jefferson County. Jefferson County's elected elite is feeling left out of the party. Most all other districts, about 90% of them, in fact have permanently debruced. This allows them to keep the massive, 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 massive windfall they're about to get in property tax hauls, as we saw in the previous article. With property tax values going up some 50 to 75%, combined with repeal of the Gallagher Amendment, which used to basically lower property tax rates when property values went up, property taxes are going through the stratosphere. Unlike most other big counties, Jefferson County will be forced to return that excess revenue, just like how the state must return its surplus tax revenue. You know, that $700 Colorado cashback check you got. By not voting to debruce, Jefferson County taxpayers save themselves the full brunt of the property tax avalanche about to run them over. At least a portion of their property taxes will be coming back to them as refunds. So there you go. You should definitely read the rest of this article. John Caldera, definitely a leader for Colorado's liberty community. Independence Institute and Complete Colorado do great work. So he's right. You know, Jefferson County voters, you need to reject any measure to take away your taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds, to take away your rights and your protections as a taxpayer in Jeffco. But let's go ahead and move on. Last article I'd like to talk about the week, something that's gained international headlines happening down in Ouray. Really wild story. Of course, the story even got wilder. But if you hadn't heard the story, so the Ouray County Plain Dealer reported that an underage girl at a party was raped, sexually assaulted multiple times. It was at the police chief's house. Wow. Not only that, but the newspapers in the community were all stolen. They were stolen for that reported this story. Somebody took them out. So I just at least wanted to provide this information there. It's a wild story. You got to read about this. It's very, very interesting. But they identified the suspect in the newspaper theft. Police say the suspect is not connected to the 3 defendants that were reported for alleged rape in the paper, which is pretty wild to think about also. January 21st, 2024. Following an apology, an attempted return of 200 small-town newspapers in a garbage bag, a Ridgeway man has been cited on suspicion of petty theft. The Ouray County Sheriff's Office cited 41-year-old Paul Choate for stealing copies of the Ouray County Plain Dealer newspaper from racks throughout the small town in the adjacent town Ridgeway on Thursday following the reporting of an alleged rape involving the family of a police chief. Choate admitted to stealing the newspapers and returned them to the Plain Dealer office Thursday night with an apology, according to an update from the publication. The story that caused such a stir appeared above the fold on page 1 of Thursday's edition. It's an account of an alleged sexual assault that occurred last May. A 17-year-old girl who is now 18, according to the newspaper, told investigators she was repeatedly raped at the Ouray police chief's home during a night of partying with the chief's stepson and 2 other suspects while adults were sleeping, according to court records obtained by the Plain Dealer. Following the theft, the paper stood strong on their reporting, printing an additional 250 copies. The second prints were not stolen. Investigators from the sheriff's office and the Ridgeway marshal's office were able to identify the suspect through security cam footage. The sheriff's office noted that Choi was not a member or relative of local law enforcement and not associated with the defendants in the recent reported sexual assault. In a press release on Friday, Choate, owner of Ridgeway's Kate's Place restaurant, admitted that he stole the newspapers because of the front page story, according to the Plain Dealer. Whoever did this does not understand that stealing newspapers doesn't stop a story. Aaron McIntyre and Mike Wiggins, who published the paper, wrote an email to readers following the theft on Thursday. So very interesting story. Interesting got more interesting. Very strange, right? I mean, what is going on down there? And just thought, kind of a big deal for a local small community like Ouray, and just wanted to give you guys the update. Also wanted to let you know this week there's an amazing event you should plan on coming up to in Denver on Thursday. The Colorado Union of Taxpayers, wonderful organization. President Kim Munson recently let me interview her at freestatecolorado.com. You can find that interview. A wonderful, wonderful Liberty leader we have. And they're having an event, a legislative kickoff event on Thursday, January 25th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association. You should definitely go and support the Colorado Union of Taxpayers. They've been a tax advocacy group since 1976. I hear there's going to be several state legislators speaking. Many were invited. We'll see who shows up. But get some drinks and hors d'oeuvres and some great discussion. Hope you can make it. I'll be there for sure. So come and check it out. Appreciate you joining me this week. Again, Brandon from freestatecolorado.com. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.